Hey guys, so I'm going to be doing my draw for who won the competition that I did a few weeks ago, and I'm also going to be doing an agate slice pour just like this one. So I'm going to show you guys how you can create this today, as well as announce who's won the competition. I'm just doing the live off my phone because the wind is affecting our internet for some reason, so I'm just doing it off my normal Wi-Fi. So I'm gonna start. There was like over 150 entries into this competition to win the mold that we're going to be using today. So this mold plus some artisue products. So I'm just going to do that draw in a little bit when everyone jumps on. I'm still cutting up everyone's entries just because it was crazy, like so many entries into this competition, which is amazing, and I was so happy that I reached 35,000. Feel free to ask questions, anything to do with any of like the art or resin projects, while I just get this draw ready and announce who's won. And then we'll get started on doing the resin piece. Today I'm using a resin that I've ordered off eBay. I thought I'd give it a go. I normally, use, I guess, brand name resin just because I trust it. So I'm trying this eBay resin because, yes, it is too late to enter, sorry Debbie. I'm just getting everyone's names in at the moment. So yeah, I'm using like a non-brand resin. Well, it's called Platinum today. So I'm checking that out because for, I think it was, how many liters? 3 liters was, I think, around the $80 mark to get it like sent here. Hey Sue, how you going? So I'm testing it out to see if it's any good because it is so cheap that I kind of am interested to see if it actually is as good as the others, because resin is very expensive, and as you guys know, like, I'm always testing out different resins on my channel to see what they're worth. I did get a good question from someone on my Instagram, because I did a little poll asking about if there was anything you guys wanted to know, and they asked like what kind of resins should you use for what projects. So I majority use like epoxy resins. Oh, thank you, Hillary. So yeah, I like majority just use epoxy based resins because I really enjoy them and they're really easy to work with. So there's an art epoxy resin, and that's like Barnes epoxy glass, art resin, just resin, like they all do like epoxy based resins. And they are great for artworks. And when you are picking your resin, you want to look at a few factors. One, like, what's the working time? If you're doing a really big artwork, you might want to go for art resin because it's got a really long working time to it, and it's great for art projects. If you're doing, like, say, coasters, you don't need a long working time for coasters because you are just pouring resin in, and you want your coasters to set quite hard. So a good resin for that would be a casting resin, so an epoxy casting resin. Barnes has got epoxy cast. So yeah, and then there's also like if you're doing stuff that you want it to quick set, Barnes has got quick setting resins that are polyurethane resins. So that would be your Bee Queen, which is the clear, or your Easy Cast, which is the white, but they set within minutes, so they're not suitable for art projects. So I thought that was a really cool question that I got through, because if you've noticed, like I do change the type of resin I'm using for the type of project. I don't just use the one resin. And also if I'm doing my clear, like how I put my bridal flowers in resin, I can't be using a resin that yellows really fast. So I tend to use art resin a lot, even though it's not a casting resin. It just has a really strong UV resistance. And you really notice like the UV when you do a clear cast, because if it goes yellow, no one wants that with their beautiful bridal flowers. So you do have to have a look into the resin that you're going to use for what projects you're going to do. So this today is a casting resin, and obviously I'm putting it into a mold, so I'm doing casting, so therefore it's like a great option for that. And I'm going to mix up all of these entries. Honestly, I'm so amazed, and I want to give a big thank you to artisue. You guys know, like, I use her pigments all the time, and she supplied the pigments for this, so definitely go and check her out. And also a big thank you to Shattered Shapes, because this mold, it's a few $100s. Like, it's not a cheap mold, so you get one of those molds as well. So a big thank you to those guys. Mix it all up. And the winner is Donna Flanders. So I'll message her, but if you are watching this, congratulations, you won the molds, plus the prize from me and all of the artisue pigments. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can get started into mixing our resin. Now, normally, if I was doing this, I'd wear a mask, but obviously you won't be able to hear what I was saying, so I'm not wearing one today, but I do have all the like doors and windows open for ventilation. It is cold here too today, so I really want a heater in my studio. I feel like I get like 2 months of the year where it's like nice weather in my studio, and then it's either boiling hot or freezing cold, because it's got like no heating or aircon. So I'm going to mix this up. I'm going to do about 500 mils. Because this is a casting resin, it's normally a 2-to-1 ratio. So therefore I need to do 200 of this, because obviously it's a smaller one, and then 300 of this. No, it's 2-to-1. I need to do 600 in total. Oh my god, I nearly did the wrong maths for that. Excellent. Because it's 2-to-1, I need 200 and then 400. That would have been interesting, not having it set. This resin actually doesn't have any odor that I can smell, so it's not too bad. It is clear. It'll be interesting. I've done a few pieces, so like in probably like a month's time, I'll give you guys an update on what my thoughts were off this cheap eBay resin. Another artist recommended it to me, so I thought I'd give it a go. Perfect. Yeah, I've heard like a few people use it, and yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes. I've only done like a few small test pieces, and I'm kind of like leaving them around just to see if they like yellow. The viscosity is okay. I do find it sets and it's really fragile, I guess, is kind of over like my art resin and stuff, because I dropped one of the really thin pieces and it shattered, and I've never had that with like the art resin or anything like that. So I do think like it's more for deeper than necessarily like a thin piece, because I just did one where I just put a few flowers in, and it was probably, I say, like 2 centimeters, and yeah, I dropped it and it shattered, so I've never seen that happen before. I haven't used it for artworks as of yet. But yeah, I'll see how it goes. I'm always really suspect about buying resin off eBay because I'm worried that it's going to be, like they'll put the brand on it, but it's not actually going to be that brand, like, you know, it'll be a fake. And also the colours that I am using today, I have got the Artisue Violet, and then I'm going to be using the Artisue Royal Purple, and then I am going to be using the Artisue Violet Pearl, and I haven't decided which one of these. I've got Amethyst and I've got Purple Passions, and they're similar but not exactly the same, so I'm still trying to decide which one of those. I'll get your like thoughts on it as well. And then I think I'm gonna add the Barnes Gold into it, just as like a contrast color, so it's not just all purples. And then I think I'm gonna use a little bit of just a plain white. So this is the LA Chem Resin Tint Titanium White, and this is like a matte white. Maybe some translucent from Barnes, not too sure. I've also got my agate slice that I'm going to be adding into my piece, and then I've got some like mirror chips like this, and then bigger crushed up mirror chips, which might be cool to add in to add a bit of texture. So like, you can see it without my gloves. They're just like that, like they're just broken up mirror chips. Mirror chips are a great alternative to use to like actual crystals, because crystals can be like really expensive, like the crystal chips. Is Artisue available in America? I am pretty sure she is. I've used platinum for artworks. In my experience, it doesn't set completely clear. Definitely requires a top coat from another brand. Oh, Artisue just said yes, her stuff is available in America. Oh, that's really good to know about the platinum with like the top coat. But, you know, I thought I'd give it a go because not everyone can afford the like Just Resin's resin. It is a really great resin, but it is also very expensive. So it's always good to try out new brands. Where can you get the crushed mirror glass? So I bought it off BZ's by You, and she has like a Facebook page. You can also get it off Etsy. A lot of places sell it, and Amazon and eBay. Just typed in like mirror chips or like crushed chips for like craft, and it normally comes up. Can you DIY it? Yeah, I guess if you just went and got like you know the glass beads and stuff and like smash them up, or like the glass pebbles that you put in like your plant pots and stuff like that, you could just smash them up. I just prefer to buy it already done because it just saves me the effort, and I don't particularly want to be smashing up a mirror just because I'm superstitious. There's a lot of resin to mix up. But yeah, I thought that'd be really cool. I also like adding like gold or silver leaf in. That can create some really cool textures. So if you don't have those, like you can just add like a sheet of gold or silver leaf and mix it up, and it actually like breaks up into like little flakes because you're mixing it through your resin. If you've watched like previous videos, I've done that. I'm also going to be testing out in a few weeks' time a new resin brand. It's very exciting. I went into their manufacturing place on the Gold Coast, and they do lots of resin for like boats and stuff, so like industrial resins, and they decided that they were going to start making like art resins. So I went in there, I think like I went in there 3 full days, and went and did testing, and I tested out all of their like samples of their like their new resins, and gave them my opinions and feedbacks, and they altered them. So they're finally like getting launched really soon. So I'm really excited because I actually got to be a part of that process, because they were all like scientists, and they all know like how resin should work, but they're all so used to doing it for like industrial stuff, they didn't get like what artists wanted it for. So the first like lot of resin that they got me to test out, like it didn't hold any pigment because no one ever like industrial wise put pigment in it. So like I had to like tell them like, oh, it needs to hold the pigment better. It just kind of like dispersed it out too much. And then like we talked about like the viscosity and like pouring time, setting time. So it was really fun to go in there and actually be a part of the process, and I'm pretty happy with the final results as an artist. They are sending me a bunch of it. So we designed 3 resins. So one is an art resin, and it's got a really good working time. It's not too long, not too short, and it has really good viscosity, and it doesn't yellow, and it holds pigment really well. And then the other one is a top coat resin, and then the last one that we worked on was the casting resin. So this casting resin can do like deep, or I think it's like 5 centimeters or something like that. So I'm really excited to get my hands on it. They're sending me out a bunch of like resin to do in some videos, so you should see that coming up really soon. And they're based on the Gold Coast too, for all of you Aussie eyes. But yeah, I'm very excited because I got to be a part of that process. Okay, so that resin's mixed up. I'm going to start doing up my pigment. And then I'm going to flip, once we start pouring, flip the camera like onto the actual thing so you can see. So you don't need a lot. And oh, I had another question too about pigments on my Instagram. So if you don't follow me on my Instagram, it's just Sheri Vegas. And I put up a little like question thing for people who wanted to know stuff beforehand so I could answer it. And the thing with pigments is a lot of people ask if you could use like acrylics or whatever. And I have covered this before, but it is, so acrylics, they are water-based, and water and resin don't mix amazingly well. So that's also like a downside to it. And the second thing is they're really low pigmented. Like all those art acrylics don't have the same pigmentation as like pigments do. So you actually have to use quite a lot of acrylic paint to actually get the color payout that you want, instead of like pigments like this, which you don't need to use a lot of because they're already super strong, like this one. And I love the artisue ones because you can either like add a little and have it really sheer, or you can add a bit more and it builds up the color. So these are all buildable, so you get a lot of control with these. I'm going to do about that much, maybe a little bit more because we are doing quite a big. So yeah, acrylic paints I personally don't recommend because you're not guaranteed the same results every single time. And I have used them beforehand in pours, and I've had my resin go just gloopy because I've had to add so much acrylic paint in to get the color that it's affected the way that the resin has like, the resin chemically reacts. So therefore it's like, it just went gloopy and I wasted all of that resin using acrylic paints. Oh, I just saw them. Oh no. Yeah, so a lot of people like do use acrylic paints, and I think they think it's cheaper, but honestly these, for the amount of like money, like the amount of stuff, like pigment you get in this, well worth it. Way more cheaper using this, hey, good morning, than using acrylic paints. Acrylic paints are actually quite expensive, like especially if you buy them from like art supply stores. So now I'm going to be putting in my royal purple. Oh, I cannot wait to use this. I've not used the royal purple yet. Do you find alcohol inks fade over time? I've never really like looked because I don't use alcohol inks a crazy amount. But no, I did alcohol ink coasters, and they're still really vibrant, but saying that, they're only 2 months old, so I'd be interested to see if I like left them somewhere where they would get decent amount of sun, if they would change. Now I'm going to be adding the violet pearl in. Yeah, so I always recommend to just use pigments that are being made for resin, and honestly they actually work out to be a lot cheaper than using acrylic paints or anything like that. So as you guys know, artisue is one of my favorite pigment supply places. going to be adding my resin tint in. Art Tree Creations got some good ones. Color Obsession, Just Resin. I recommend like all of those places, just depending on like the colors, because not every place has every color. So if you're after a particular color, you might have to like shop around. I know I need to go and get some more matte tones because I'm running out of my matte tones, because I don't always want to use like shimmer in everything, or sometimes I like to use some matte colors and some shimmer colors to add that contrast. So I know I do need to go and get some more matte tones because I am running really low on them. I personally prefer powder pigments because they don't dry out because they're already a dry product. So these I will have for so long, but something like this, that's a cream, it eventually will dry out if I don't use it up in time. So if you buy a cream product and it's like a rare color, like say it's fluoro yellow, and you're only going to be using it like every so often, then it might dry out before you actually finish it. And so I hate like the wastefulness of the cream if you don't get through it. Like white, I get through creams so fast because let's face it, like I use white a lot. Okay, so now it's time to decide, do I want to use Amethyst or do I want to use Passion's Purple? Alright, so which one? So this one is Passion's Purple. They're very similar. And then this one is Amethyst. Alright, I don't know which one I want to use. What do you guys think? Oh, which lid was which? Okay, we're gonna go with Amethyst then. Thanks, Maddie. Hey, Angela. And then I think that's all the colors. Yep, that's all of my colors mixed up. I'm going to put my gloves back on. I'm also going to put some of my mirror chips in with my resin. So I've got silver mirror chips. I have got black mirror chips. And then I have got, I guess, these smoky grey ones. Which ones should I use? Or maybe I should do like I think, you know what, I'm going to do a bit of smoky grey. And it's so pretty. And I might add a little bit of the black because I do have that like royal purple, which is quite like a deep colour. Also too, when you use your mirror chips, just be careful because they are sharp, so don't be sticking your hands in them. That looks good. And I might do gold. I haven't decided yet, so I think I'll put that like aside and leave some resin aside and decide if I want to do it then. Okay, I'm going to just divvy out my resin and then I'm going to flip the camera around so you guys can see what we are doing. So I'll put my gloves back on. So this mold is quite big and does require like quite a lot of resin. So like if you wanted to fill this mold the whole way up to the surface, I think you'd need like 1.5 liters of resin, maybe 2. It's really deep. Sometimes I don't do it the whole way up. It's not necessary. And then I'm going to leave some clear resin to one side because I will be using a little bit of clear in this. And I might want to add the gold in, so I'll put some of my clear resin aside and I'll just flip the camera around now. So give me a second. Yeah, the mold's so great, isn't it, Maddie? It's from Shattered Shapes. Oh, did you just order it? That's awesome. Oh, a bit lopsided. Perfect. Yeah, it's one of my favorite molds. I've been doing a lot with it. I filmed a few more tutorials in the last week with it, so I'm very excited. I think I might just give my mold a bit of a clean. So there is a few ways. Oh, thanks, Linton. Yeah, I'm very interested in seeing how it goes. So I'm just using some alcohol spray. I'm just going to give my mold a clean because I have been using it and it probably is dirty. You can also get sticky tape, and just like if you see like one or two stray bits, you can just use the tape to kind of like pick it up. I always have to clean everything. For some reason, like Coco's hair just follows, and like she never comes into the studio, but her hair does. So I'm always like finding a random hair of hers everywhere. I think it just attaches itself to me, and then I spread it. I know, fur babies, like she doesn't even like coming into the studio because I don't think she likes the smell, which is good, but I think it's just from me cuddling her. I kind of spread it, and then I'm just getting like any little bits that didn't come out with some tape, because whatever's in this mold when you pour is going to end up setting into it. Put my gloves back on. Just mix my colors in. Also too, you know what's great about the silicone and the agate slice is your agate slice actually just sticks. So I got these agate slice off eBay, and I think it's from a place in Sydney. So it will literally just stick there into place, and it's kind of like locks in. Like once you stick it down, it's really hard to lift. So because I'm pouring, this part's going to be the bottom, and like that's going to be the top, if that makes sense. So when I pull it out, that will actually be the top. So you've got to kind of decide what part of the slice, it's still got its sticker on, but I don't think that really matters, I'll pick it off later, that you like best. And then the side that you like best, place it down, and however you want to place it, you could place it in the middle, you could place it off to the edge. Then I'm just going to place it, maybe that one. Yeah, like that, and just push it down. So it's kind of been nice to get back out and around and having a look at things, like actually leaving the house. Has anyone done anything? I've just had a lot of like walks with friends and gone and had like picnics. But other than that, nothing too crazy. Still doing like the social distancing, but it is nice to be able to see them like face to face again. So this is the mirror chips, and I've just put some resin in with them. I think they're quite pretty. And just coating them up. Sorry, bear with me while I mix everything up. I should have poured just a tiny bit, this is my mistake. I should have just poured like a tiny bit of resin, mixed the pigment in, and then added the rest in, but I wasn't thinking, and now I'm trying to like mix all of the pigment through this amount of resin. So it's always best to just pour a tiny bit of resin, mix the pigment in, make it like to a paste, and then pour the actual amount of resin you want, but I was too busy chatting and wasn't busy like thinking. Add a bit more into that one. The last place I actually traveled to was California. I went to like LA and like Palm Springs and San Clemente. It's really beautiful there, but yeah, because I guess because you guys are so populated. Hi, Mandy Hall. That it's really hard to kind of like social distance when, you know, you're in a space that has so many people. Like, I guess that's kind of like the lucky thing about Australia is there's not a lot of us. So we can go out and about and not necessarily like be in each other's space. So I think that's the lucky thing. Yeah. Me and Artie both live in Queensland. So we have been very lucky here. It's been nowhere near as bad as like the rest of the world. So it is really like nice. And I guess for once it's good to have a really small population. Oh, so Singapore is still really hot, but I guess Singapore too is also really densely populated, like a lot more than Australia, so I can see why you guys have to wait a little bit longer. Okay, so I think I'm going to do my darkest colour, and this is my royal purple, and I'm going to do that around the outside, and I'm just going to follow the line. I love that colour. I've not used it before, but it looks so great. I know, yeah, Sue needs to start making more videos. I love Sue's videos. And then I'm gonna go with, I think we went for amethyst. Hey Bianca. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. And then I'm just going to follow it. And then this is violet, I'm pretty sure. Yep, the violet powder. And then do this again. So I'm going to add my mirror chips in now, and I'm just going to do it around my slice to kind of give it that more crystallized effect. And don't worry if these poke out a bit, because we're going to top coat everything anyway. Smush them down if some standing out a bit too much. So you could do this and you could add handles and make it into like a serving tray, or you could just hang it up on your wall as an artwork, because this piece is big enough that it would look really stunning just as like a freestanding artwork. I'm just scooping out all of them because I might as well use them. And then I'm going to pour a bit of clear resin and then add some of my white on top of my clear resin. How much resin do you need to fill this huge mold? So we're using 600 mils today, but it could easily be like 1 liter, because like look how much that's barely touched. Like I'd say like anywhere from like 1 to 2 liters if you want it to really like fill it right up to the line, but you don't have to fill it right up to the line. So I'm just going to add my clear around. And then I'm going to pour clear on top of my dark color too, to push it and work with the densities of my pigments, which will create some really cool effects. And you can see like that clear resin is now kind of pushing the pigmented resin away, and it's creating those really cool effects. So I'm just going to get my heat gun and do a quick blast just to get those bubbles before I continue on. I do like heat gun throughout. Be really careful with your silicone molds not to overheat them, because you can ruin them. So just really quick with the heat and only on a low temperature. Also, by adding a little bit of heat to your resin, it gets it moving a bit and can create some really cool patterns, because it starts to become a little bit more fluid and starts to move. So this is the violet pearl. I'm going to pour that around my agate slice. And I'm also going to pour some violet pearl on top of, in between where the amethyst and violet meet. And then I've got my white. I'm going to pour that around. And then, with a paddle pop stick, I'm going to kind of swirl out my white. I don't want to overwork it, I just kind of want to push it down, create some pretty patterns. Just like that. Oh, it's looking so good already. Oh, thank you so much, Makeup Weapons. Alright, so now I'm going to add more of my amethyst. And then more of my violet. So I'm just kind of following it the whole way around and just filling in those gaps. And I'm going to add a really thin white line because the white's the heaviest, it's the most dense, so therefore it's going to sink to the bottom and create some really cool patterns. So I don't think I'm going to add the gold anymore because I'm kind of liking the color combination right now. And I feel like if I added the gold, it might be too much and I might kind of like throw off like what's looking good right now. It's so hard to know about because it's like, when do you stop? Add some more of this. Gonna add some more heat to it, get it moving. But I think that's looking really good. I think I'll just use up the last of the amethyst. But you can kind of see too, so when it's in a mold, it's going to be pushing. The resin wants to move, so it's going to go in, and you can see it starting. See that like line? And it's coming in, and it's going to start creating some really cool patterns. But because there's something in the middle, that's pushing back out, and you're going to form some really cool effects. So I just want to make sure I use up all of my resin. And I'm just going to pour that clear down. And then I'm going to use the last of my royal purple. Might add some more into that. Yeah, I would avoid using like industrial resins because they're just not made to do art with. Like they're made to coat boats and other things, and they can be really like dangerous and really fumey because they're really strong. Your art resins are a little bit more safe. Saying that, you still need to take safety precautions. If I wasn't doing a live, I'd be wearing a mask right now. Yeah, so you just need to make sure you are safe because you are working with a chemical. And so yeah, industrial resins can be a little bit just harder to use. So I just always recommend using up the art resins. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave it as it is, kind of let it do its thing a little bit longer. I might swirl that again. But it's just going to keep moving and changing. I will put up a story about kind of what this came out like in my next live. So if anyone has any more questions, feel free to ask them now. Otherwise, oh, thank you, Mandy. Yeah, I love the colours. Otherwise, we'll be hopping off soon. So yeah, feel free to ask your questions now. I'm just going to give a quick little blast with my heat gun just to get those bubbles. But I can't wait to pull it out because when I pulled out my other one, it looks so cool on the bottom. Like this looks pretty as it is, but the bottom looks even better. So I'm going to have to leave it in for 24 hours. When you cast it, like don't ever pull it out too soon because the resin could still be really floppy, even though it's like not sticky or not like hard, like it's not sticky. It just, you know, just leave it in your mold for at least 24 hours. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Oh, will you do another layer of clear resin? Yes, I will. Once I pull it out and I use the bottom as my top, I do a top coat of resin, which is like when you can then, if you want to, this is like the other piece that I did, you can add handles in too when you go to do your clear top coat. I also added, when I did my clear top coat, see all that silver lacing, I added that then. But yeah, so when I do my top coat, that's when I add my handles on. If I want it as a serving tray, you don't always have to have it as a serving tray. It could just be like a really beautiful artwork. I also thought of a really cool idea that if you put a light behind it, because it is got clear parts, it could be a really beautiful light as well. So that could be something I'll do a tutorial on in the future, putting like LED lights behind it and using it as like a wall light, which I think would be awesome. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will post up on my Instagram what this looks like when I do pull it out. Have a great day.